Hello again, friends. It's Tyler from Rehab to Fab Designs, and welcome to another edition of our DIY home renovation, Mountain Cottage Edition. Today, in episode 13, we are going to be working on an accent wall in this master bedroom. But before we get started, let's walk around and look at the house as we found it before taking on this project. If you watched my first episode where we welcomed you to the project, you'll know that this is a cottage up in the North Georgia mountains. It was built in, I believe, 1904. It's a super cute house. It has good wood floors in it. It has the nice original old doors that I love with all the panels on it. It has a lot of baseboards and trim, and it was already started the makeover process by the homeowners, where they had started gutting the kitchen and the dining room walls and opening it up to make it a bigger open concept kind of floor plan, and they had already started working on the master bath to get it updated. As you can see here, my oldest loves the shower, so they hired us to come in and kind of be a designer for them, to help them come up with the ideas of what they wanted to do, and also to paint for them because I love painting. So they hired us to come in, do some accent walls, paint the house, get it more modernized, and get it updated and ready to be rented as a short-term rental for Airbnb. After just one day of rolling paint on the ceiling in the living room, I decided I was going to buy a paint sprayer because it killed my arms and my chest and my shoulders. So we went right on to Home Depot and got us a paint sprayer so we could start with that. We picked up this airless paint sprayer made by Graco from our local Home Depot, and boy, was it worth the money. My hubby did all the spraying, so if you have questions on that, drop it in the comments and I'll try to get him to answer for you. Because I'm sure many of you will ask, I'll go ahead and tell you the paint color on the walls is a color called Drift of Mist by Sherwin-Williams. It's a grayish color. I originally didn't like it when I put it on when it was wet. However, it ended up turning out beautifully once we got it on and got the the windows uncovered, so we got some light in the house and got the trim done as well. It's very pretty. So while my husband got the sprayer going and painting on the walls, I did other projects throughout the house, and we kind of jumped back and forth really from project to project, trying to be smart as we went with painting so we didn't have to waste so much product, and also like our rollers and brushes, trying to be smart so we didn't have to clean them so often or throw them away. This is what it looks like once it had a coat of paint on the walls. So much brighter, more airy, a lot cleaner looking. It always amazes me the difference in a house with just paint. Here's a look at the master bath where we had it all covered and painted it as well. It was rolled on in here, and the trim was done in an angled brush. If you'd like more information on that, I have a separate video on how to paint the trim. It can be found here on my YouTube channel as well. Look how much prettier this old door is now with a fresh coat of paint. Now that we got the walls, the door, and the trim painted, it's time for the fun stuff. Time for an accent wall. This was our inspiration photo, and what better way to dress up a mountain cottage than by putting an accent wall of mountains in the master bedroom. P.S. If you're not on Pinterest, you should be. There's so much amazing content on there and such good inspiration. Also, you can find and follow us on Pinterest under Rehab to Fab Designs. So I knew I wanted to use a 1x2 board for my accent wall because I didn't want it to be too thick. I also knew that since I was going to be painting it in a darker color, that I could go ahead and buy the regular raw lumber as opposed to the primed lumber that I purchased for the wainscoting that we put in the hallway and also in the dining room. Those were going to be painted in a light color, and I knew that I didn't want them to bleed, so I bought them pre-primed. For this wall, however, we're using raw lumber because, again, we're going to be painting it a dark color. Haven't decided which color yet, but I know it's going to be darker. I started the accent wall by coming in with a piece of chalk and marking where I wanted my mountain peaks to be. Once I had done this and kind of had a generalized layout of the height of them and where I wanted to be, my husband came behind me using his level and his square to make sure that the angles on the peaks were straight. Using the chalk, we basically traced it along the sides of the square to make a perfect angle. using the chalk means that if we needed to change it or adjust it in any way, I didn't have to come back and erase it in the event that it ended up higher than I wanted it to be and it was on the lighter colored paint. If it was below it where my darker paint was going to be, it wouldn't matter, but we weren't sure yet. So I know it's kind of hard to see here, but with the light you can kind of see where the outline of the chalk is, so you can kind of see where we're going with it. Here we are using another board and also our level so that we can make sure our lines are level. And also I wanted to make sure that my two higher peaks were not starting at the same point on the wall, meaning I didn't want them to line up side by side. Wanted to make sure I had different heights on them, so we used it to make sure we were dropped down below where the one peak was. Next up, I had to decide which mountain peaks I wanted to be in the foreground and which ones I wanted to be in the background. So when you think of looking at an image in 3D, you'll notice that there are some images in the background and some that appear closer to the front. So in order to not have a flat image, even though we are working on a flat wall, you want to make it appear as if some of the mountain peaks are in the background and some are closer towards the front. So I had to decide which ones I wanted to be closer towards the front so I would know which ones would have a board that went from the top of the peak all the way down the wall, and which ones would only go part the way down the wall, indicating that they were in the background. So I doodled on the inspiration peak here, so hopefully it kind of makes sense. As you can see with the purple, this is indicating that this mountain peak will be in the background. This illusion is created by making the board on that left side shorter so that it doesn't go all the way down to the floor like the forefront mountain peak, where the yellow line goes all the way down. Another easy way to figure this out is basically just to put your taller mountains in the background and your shorter ones in the forefront. We continued using a long 8-foot board as a guide and our level to draw out the remainder of the mountains. Hey, it's Tyler here from Rehab to Fab Designs, and we are working on our accent wall number 3. This is in the master bedroom at the cottage up in Clayton, and we are going to be putting a design on the wall with some 1x2s in the form of mountains, because we're in the North Georgia mountains. So what better way to decorate this little cabin cottage getaway than putting a mountain scene on the wall. So I don't know if you can see here, we came in originally and marked the wall off with the chalk. This is just plain yellow chalk. It's actually sidewalk chalk because it's all I could find at Walmart when I went. So that's going to be our 4 peaks we have. Let me see if I can turn it so you can see. So I'm going to do 1 here, 2 here. This one will be in the forefront. This one will be in the background as well as that first one. And then there's another one over here you probably can't see for the light. So the plan is to do 1x2s, but not just one. So we don't want just one going up and down. We want to put 2 in places. So I will move this a little closer. See if you can see here. I have it marked. There's a place here for a board, and then a place here for a board, and then a place here for a board, and a place here. So we'll have 2 on some of them, 1 on some areas, and then we're also going to fill in the middle with it, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense probably just talking about it, but I'll drop a picture here. So this is our inspiration photo from Pinterest, and this is what we're going for, similar to that. So I have got a marker because I'm in here by myself. My husband's actually in the laundry room painting. So I'm going to try to mark it off by myself if I can. Ideally, I would use the boards themselves, but it's kind of hard to hold an 8-foot long board by yourself straight without it moving, and mark it with a pencil as well. But I'm going to try to mark it off so I can kind of get an idea as to how I want this to look before we start cutting our boards, so we don't have to redo anything or pull anything off the wall and start over. So just to explain a little better what I meant by using 2 boards, again, I doodled on the inspiration photo so you can see in purple there are 2 separate boards on the mountain peak, and then where you see green there is only 1 board on the mountain peak. Varying the design with both 1 and 2 boards in different spaces actually creates the illusion of a little more depth and dimension. I knew that my 1x2 boards actually measure 1.5 inches, So for every line that I put on the wall in chalk to indicate where a board would be, I measured 1.5 inches away from that and then drew another line down the length of the wall to indicate the whole board itself. From there, you just have to decide how far apart you want your two boards to be in areas where you're using two. The inspiration pick had different amounts of space in between each area that had two boards, but I wasn't digging this and my OCD wouldn't let me do it, so I actually made mine all the same. I think if I remember correctly, I did about 3 inches in between each board in the areas where I had two boards.
Okay, so on my first peek, I have one line so far with that side and then two. Second peek's gonna have 2 sets of row lines that will be for 2 boards. Third one is 2, but you can't see that last line, it's kind of light. And then 1 on the other side, and then 2 and 2. So when you step back and look at it, you have 2 boards on both sides, 2 boards and 1 board, 2 boards on both sides, 2 boards and 1 board. So I'm still marking off my wall here. My boards are 1.5 inches wide, and I'm just kind of randomly picking where I want these to go. So when I do decide where I have a board I want to go, I am coming along and just kind of making little tick marks at 1.5 inches, kind of all the way down the length. That way I know how wide my board is going to be. So I know where to put my next one, if that makes any sense. And then I'm using my ruler here. Alright, there we go. Let me kind of get a look for how it's going to be.
It's starting to come together now. The video is getting kind of long, and I realize that people have a very short attention span because we're all very busy. So be sure and check out the next episode so you can watch us put the boards on the wall to create this accent wall of mountains.